while gathering herbs in the mountains, a line of text suddenly appeared before my eyes. The son of the male and female leads was thrown into the maple forest of Red Maple Village and is about to be bitten to death by a silver-ringed snake. This marks the beginning of a tragic love story. I rushed toward the maple forest without delay. I saved the child beside the snake's nest, but 2 months later, I saw the bullet comments again. The female lead's 1-month-old daughter was snatched away by enemies and thrown into the lake of Red Maple Village. The daughter's remains were caught in the duckweed. Was she drowned or starved to death? So tragic. Did the female lead give birth that quickly? I was shocked, then rushed to pick up the child again. Half a year later, the bullet comments exploded again. Oh my God! The sweet novel's female lead ran away with her child. But the twins were stolen by the vicious supporting female character and thrown onto the peak of Wishing Mountain, where they froze to death. How many female leads are there, for heaven's sake? I risked climbing to the mountain peak and brought back the child. In just a few years, I've already picked up 4, 5, 10 children through bullet comments. Oh my goodness gracious. Please, protagonists, stop losing your children. I really can't afford to raise any more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. I am a herb gatherer. Before the white dew had dried, I was already in the mountains. My husband passed away before the new year, and the money owed to the clinic has not yet been settled. Dr. Lee said that Lingji mushrooms fetch a high price in spring, so I ventured into the mountains alone, disregarding the abundance of snakes in late spring. At that moment, a line of text suddenly appeared floating in the air before my eyes. The male and female lead's son was thrown into the maple forest of Red Maple Village and was immediately bitten to death by a silver-ringed snake. The prelude to a tragic romance begins. I blinked in confusion, but the strange text before my eyes remained. Poor child, left by the snake pit. How cruel. I couldn't help but take a deep breath. The venom of the silver-ringed snake is deadly and swift. I quickly turned and rushed toward the maple grove. Although I gather herbs year-round and am quite familiar with this area, the maple forest is vast, and I'm afraid it might take a while to find him. Unfortunately, the child was right next to the snake's nest. A moment's delay could have cost him his life. Suddenly, as if fate had spared the child, a loud war of crying erupted, clear and strong, carried along with the rustling of maple leaves. I carefully listened to pinpoint the direction. In the chilly morning of the mountain forest, I was so anxious that sweat beaded on my forehead and my heart raced. I feared taking the wrong path, and even more, I feared that if I were just a moment too late, the child would be entangled by venomous snakes. Fortunately, with my keen hearing and sharp eyes, I quickly pinpointed the exact location. Amidst the green thicket, a conspicuous nest of black and brown banded krites coiled around one another, sending chills down my spine. They are like a pack of vicious beasts, lying in wait with danger. A silver-ringed snake has already coiled around the child's swaddling clothes. The child's crying suddenly stopped. Terrible. I broke a fresh branch. First, I used the fresh branch to flick away the silver-ringed snake from the swaddling clothes. Silver-ringed snakes are usually not very aggressive, being timid and gentle. However, they can still defend themselves passively and will strike back if harassed. Using a fresh branch can somewhat conceal the human attack. Fortunately, the child is still alive. The little ancestor was happily munching on his own chubby hand. I breathed a sigh of relief, but then I caught sight of something in the tree out of the corner of my eye. I looked up and was scared out of my wits. On the branch directly above the child, several banded krites hung, coiled and intertwined, on the verge of falling. Just now, I was wondering why a banded krite would actively climb onto a swaddling cloth. It's quite clear that the banded krite on the swaddling cloth had fallen from the branch. Banded krites cannot move around in trees that high. This is man-made. They want this child dead, and by such a mocking and cruel method. I quickly grabbed a corner of the swaddling cloth and pulled the child away from the danger zone. Untying the swaddling bands, she lifted the child away, using a stick. She carefully stirred the swaddling clothes to ensure nothing dangerous was hidden inside, then picked them up and wrapped the child. I am an herb gatherer, not a healer. The child in the swaddling clothes appeared normal, but I still felt uneasy. I carried the child back, intending to find Dr. Lee for a checkup. Strangely enough, at the entrance of the mountain forest, there was a large, bright tree hollow filled with glossy Ganoderma. That's not right. When I entered the mountain and passed by here, there clearly wasn't any, not just today. I often pass by here, but I have never seen it before. However, being desperately poor, the joy in my heart quickly overwhelmed that slight confusion. I cut a few vines and wove a simple carrying basket to carry the child on my back. After confirming the tree hollow was safe, I began harvesting the Lingji mushrooms. Judging by the sun, it was just past the Chen hour, 7 to 9 a.m. I set the child down, shouldered the medicine basket, then picked up the child again and hurried home. At this time, nearly all the farmers were busy in the fields, so I didn't encounter anyone along the way. Mother-in-law was hanging clothes in the yard. When she saw me return with a child in my arms, she was so startled that she dropped the clothes she was holding. Chunyang, where did you steal this child from? It's no wonder she thought that, when I was young. My parents went up the mountain to gather firewood and were tragically taken by a tiger. None of my uncles were willing to take me in. Fortunately, the Lin family in the same village kindly took me in. I grew up with the Lin family's young master, and we were very close. Later, we married. But shortly after our wedding, my husband suddenly fell seriously ill. On his deathbed, my husband was filled with remorse, saying he hadn't given me a son or daughter. Fearing I'd have no one to rely on and be lonely in the future, to comfort him, I said I'd just buy a son or daughter later. If I had no money, then I'd steal a child, even if it meant stealing. It was just a joke. But unfortunately, my mother-in-law overheard it all. My mother-in-law scolded us with a stern voice and harsh expression. At that time, my mind was entirely preoccupied with thoughts of my husband, so I paid no attention and did not offer any explanation. Little did I expect that my mother-in-law would still remember this matter. She was well aware that the family was burdened with debt and had no extra money, so she immediately assumed the child had been stolen. Mother, she's not stolen, I found her. As I spoke, I stuffed the child into her arms, set down the medicine basket, and hurriedly turned to leave. I'm going to Aunt Wang's first to rent a donkey cart. We'll go to town. I'll explain everything on the way. Hongfeng village was only 20 li from the town. Usually, I go to sell medicinal herbs, walking there and back, but now, with my child's safety at stake, a donkey cart would be much faster. Along the way, I omitted the miraculous subtitles, but I revealed everything else. Seeing my serious and somber expression, my mother-in-law finally believed that I had found the child. She looked at the child in her arms, then at the Lingji mushroom in the medicine basket, and said, "As you said, it's truly miraculous. Could it be that this child brought us this good fortune with the Lingji?" I smiled and said, "Perhaps." In the clinic, Dr. Lee lifted the curtain. I stepped forward and asked, "Dr. Lee, how is the child?" Dr. Lee smiled and said, "Rest assured, Madam Lin, the child is very healthy." I breathed a sigh of relief and asked my mother-in-law to hold the child. At that moment, the appraisal of the Lingji mushroom was completed. The shopkeeper is the son of Dr. Lee. He clattered the abacus beads. "Madam Lin, these Lingji mushrooms weigh almost 10 jin. I'll round it up for you. When dried, they'll be about 10 liang. I weighed them once at home, and the weight is correct. 1 jin equals 8 liang. 8 liang of Ganoderma lucidum, dried, weighs about 1 liang. Shopkeeper Lee, how much will that be?" Shopkeeper Lee glanced at me. "You're a regular customer. So it's still 100 wen per liang of Ganoderma, that's 1,000 wen in total, which is 1 liang of silver." I frowned and said, "That's the price for ordinary Lingji. But this batch is of exceptional quality and quite aged. The price should at least double." Having gathered herbs with my father-in-law for many years, my knowledge may not be profound, but I'm not so easily fooled. Sell it or not, it's up to you. If you don't want to, take it elsewhere. Manager Lee's face darkened as he said sternly, "But let me be blunt, if you refuse to sell the medicinal herbs to my shop, then settle the outstanding medical fees immediately, if you show no courtesy. Don't blame me for being unkind." My heart ached with bitterness. Who, then, was truly unkind and unjust? However, my husband had been bedridden for 2 years, which not only drained our family savings but also left us owing over 30 taels of silver to the Lee family clinic. In these times, Was borrowing money ever an easy matter? Underground banks were happy to lend, but the interest rolled faster than a snowball. That would be the death of me. Thinking this, I swallowed my pride and said kindly, "Shopkeeper Lee is absolutely right. I would never forget your kindness. Please, be the bigger person and don't hold it against a humble woman like me. In the days to come, I will diligently gather herbs to repay my late husband's medical expenses as soon as possible. That's more like it." Manager Lee's expression softened slightly. However, Dr. Lee shook his head and said, "Xian Ren, you've followed me for many years, yet you haven't grasped the essence. What Madam Lin said is correct. This batch of Ganoderma is top grade and should be priced at least double." Manager Lee was taken aback, somewhat reluctant, but did not argue. "It seems I was truly blind. Then let's make it double the price. What does Madam Lin think?" I pretended to be delighted and said gratefully, "Thank you." When we left, after turning the corner at the doorway, I signaled for my mother-in-law to continue walking with the child, yet I quietly stopped in my tracks. Hearing the receding footsteps, Shopkeeper Lee finally couldn't help but angrily say, "Father, what were you thinking? Even if we didn't offer her double the price, she wouldn't dare not sell to us." Unexpectedly, Dr. Lee cursed, "You idiot. Did you only hear her thanking you and flattering you? But you didn't hear her implying that our prices are unfair, and that once she pays off her debt, she won't come back." Shopkeeper Lee was stunned. "Huh, when did she say that?" Dr. Lee snorted angrily and added, "Moreover, those Lingji mushrooms are at least 10-year-old premium quality. Even if we paid her 4 or 5 times the price, we wouldn't be at a loss." After leaving the clinic, I carried my child and went to the county office to file a report. The county magistrate said it had been recorded and that he would send someone to notify me as soon as there was any news. Then he drove us away, afraid that I would pass the unknown baby to him like a hot potato. At that moment, the child began to cry loudly. I was at a loss, but my mother-in-law, with experience, gently touched the baby's little belly and said, "Don't panic, he's just hungry." "Mother, what should we do? We can't afford a wet nurse either." Dr. Lee said this little baby was only 3 months old. "These little babies are hard to feed, and I'm really afraid I might accidentally kill him." My mother-in-law said, "Didn't Liu Tieju's wife next door give birth 2 months ago?" I heard her mother-in-law boast that she had plenty of milk, more than enough for her chubby grandson. "Go back to the village and take him to latch on." I bought a cut of pork belly in town, and also some melon seeds and snacks, and took them to the Liu family. The baby got a full feeding. But how could one feeding be enough? A baby so small needs to feed every hour or so. It took much coaxing from her mother-in-law before Liu Tieju's wife, Zhong Tsuehua, finally agreed to help. During the day, when the child was hungry, the mother-in-law would take him to the Liu family. At night, Tsuehua helped take care of him overnight, 10 coins a day, plus 1 chicken each month. As soon as the deal was struck, the Liu family immediately asked for the chicken first. As she opened the chicken coop to catch a chicken, my mother-in-law said, "Haha, this is hilarious. So all these plump chickens of mine were actually raised for a little baby." I thought my mother-in-law had gone mad with distress over her chickens. "Mother, I'm sorry, it's all my fault for picking up this child, making our already impoverished family even worse off." My mother-in-law grabbed a plump hen, turned to look at me, and said seriously, "Why blame yourself? Isn't it said that saving one life is better than 7 scrolls of paintings?" I corrected her. "Saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-story pagoda." My mother-in-law chuckled. "Who cares how many pictures it is? Anyway, saving someone is never wrong, and I don't blame you." I sighed. "But 10 coins a day, that's 3 mace of silver a month. Today's sale of Lingji mushrooms brought in 2 taels of silver, but this is extremely rare. Often, I'd spend a month gathering herbs and still not earn 3 chen of silver. I don't know how much longer I can keep this child." My mother-in-law, chicken in one hand, patted my shoulder with the other, comforting me. "I suppose the Liu family must be desperate for money, knowing we can't bear to let the little baby starve, so they're taking advantage of the situation. But at least they're only after some money and are still willing to help. In 2 or 3 months, if we really can't afford to keep him, we can feed him with rice soup or rice paste to keep him alive." Chunyang, try to look on the bright side. I thought to myself, that's right. When the child grows a bit older, feeding rice porridge won't easily cause choking, and it won't be as easy to accidentally harm them. From then on, I felt more at ease. The little baby was fair and tender, like a soft, fluffy glutinous rice ball. Every morning when I went out to gather herbs, his big, dark grape-like eyes would follow me, as if seeing me off. If I look back at him, he giggles, melting my heart. I wonder if good deeds are rewarded with good fortune. Since then, I've surprisingly been able to gather precious medicinal herbs from time to time. After saving up for 2 months, I sold the common herbs to the Lee family clinic. Once again, I quietly took the precious medicinal herbs to another town and sold them to a large medical clinic, fetching a price more than double what I would have received from the Lee family clinic. That day, I drove the donkey cart back to the village under the glow of the evening sunset. Running through the money in my head, I let out a gleeful cackle. Ha ha ha, with my incredible money-making skills, raising a little baby is nothing for someone like me, Lin Chunyang. Just as I was grinning from ear to ear, I suddenly saw the bullet comments again. The female lead's newborn daughter, barely a month old, was snatched by an enemy and thrown into the lake in Red Maple Village. Ha! Did the female lead give birth that quickly? I found the female lead's son 2 months ago, and the little guy is only 5 or 6 months old now. There's no way the female lead could have had another baby so soon. Does the female lead possess a heaven-defying physique? This is truly unheard of, a marvel for the ages. At this moment, several other bullet comments appeared. Later, the male and female leads found their daughter, her skeletal remains caught in duckweed. Was she drowned, or starved to death? How tragic. Even though their daughter died, the male and female leads blamed each other, making love while hating. How exciting. But I really didn't want their daughter to die. But the enemy has already thrown their daughter into the lake. Who can save the poor daughter? Shocked, I quickly took off my shoes and frantically slapped the donkey. Donkey, hurry. Faster. I was still a few miles from the village, simultaneously wishing I could spur the donkey like a horse and rapidly analyzing the subtitle information. The river that flowed through Hongfeng village was covered in duckweed. What if the child had drowned? It wouldn't take long at all for them to be completely gone. Once I find the wrong place, I'll miss the perfect opportunity to save someone. At this thought, my heart started pounding. Cold sweat trickled down from my temples. Wait. I think I've missed something. I swallowed hard and gripped the shoe tighter, slapping Brother Donkey even harder. Brother Donkey finally got angry. He let out a sharp cry. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed through my mind. Whoa! I pulled Brother Donkey to a stop and quickly turned him around. I turned back a ways and dashed down a path hidden by tall grass to my left. I remembered where the child had been abandoned, since the duckweed was able to hold the child, preventing the body from sinking after death. It meant the duckweed was abundant and thriving. The river that flowed through Hongfeng village had scattered patches of duckweed along its banks, but there is only one place that meets this requirement. That is the place in our village where livestock are slaughtered, nourished by animal manure and the like. The duckweed naturally grows abundantly and in dense clusters. Taking this shortcut would cut the distance by at least half. I rushed over so fast my shoes were practically smoking. I was burning with anxiety, but didn't dare let my guard down. I carefully surveyed my surroundings. What if my enemies hadn't left yet? The child's life is a life, and my life is also a life, until no suspicious person was found. Perhaps the enemy was certain that throwing a 1-month-old child into the lake would mean certain death. So, after throwing the child, they left immediately. So once again, I rushed over in a flurry to pick up the child. On the duckweed floated a deep blue swaddling cloth. Splash! I leaped into the water and swiftly swam toward the child. When I held the child, it felt heavier than I had imagined. It turned out there was a stone tied beneath the swaddling clothes. This weight design ensured the child would both drown and become entangled in the floating duckweed. To keep the child's remains, forcing the parents to witness it, truly a case of adding insult to injury. I swam back to shore and laid the child down, but the child's face was blue and purple, and there was no breath left. I quickly untied the waterlogged, heavy swaddling clothes. Having grown up in a water town, I was not only skilled at swimming but also knew how to perform CPR on a drowning person. Once, twice, 3 times. Good baby, don't give up, wake up, wake up. The child still showed no response. My hands were trembling violently, my eyes immediately welled up, and tears streamed down my face. Just then, the child suddenly coughed, bringing up foamy liquid. I immediately turned the child onto their side. It's alive, it's alive. I untied the stone tied to the swaddling clothes and wrung out the water from the cloth. Then I wrapped it back around the child, who was panting and whimpering weakly like a small rabbit. When I returned home, my mother-in-law was cooking with the little one strapped to her back. Did you pick up another one? Compared to last time, mother-in-law was only slightly surprised. Mother, this child has nearly drowned. Please go quickly and fetch Uncle Yang. Uncle Yang was a village doctor with mediocre skills, a barefoot physician, but it was already late, and the child's condition was unclear. There was no time to wait to go to the town. I'll go right away. My mother-in-law didn't even care about the food she was frying. She dropped the spatula, hoisted the little one onto her back, and rushed out the door. I quickly washed the child with hot water and changed him into clean clothes. And just then, Old Man Yang arrived. Although Old Man Yang's medical skills were average, having been born in a waterside village, he had seen many cases of drowning over the decades. The child is breathing clearly. The heart rate is also normal. The eyes are lively, and the mind is clear. The weather is warm, and there are no symptoms of catching a cold. For the next few hours, just observe for any delayed symptoms. I breathed a sigh of relief. The child whimpered, gnawing on a tiny finger, looking utterly pathetic. Old Man Yang chuckled. He's hungry. My mother-in-law sent for Tsuehua. That night, Tsuehua came over with the child and stayed at our place to rest. I stayed up all night, keeping an eye on the child's condition. She was very resilient and well-behaved. She drank, then slept, and when she woke up, she drank again. A night passed, and her little face had become much rosier, occasionally even breaking into a smile. I finally let go of the worry that had been weighing on my heart. It's just that I'll have to take care of another little baby now. Tsuehua was very straightforward, with just 2 words, pay more. With more children, Tsuehua couldn't manage them all at night. The Liu family's house was small, and the Kang bed was small, so her mother-in-law couldn't sleep there either. However, the west room where her mother-in-law lived was very spacious, with a wide and long Kang, so she had Tsuehua bring the children to live with her. So, all the eating and drinking would be at my home. My mother-in-law sighed and said, "What are we raising here? 2 little babies, more like 2 gold-swallowing beasts." Even so, my mother-in-law would go to town every few days to buy good things, preparing special meals for Tsuehua to nourish her body. Tsuehua spent her days nursing and caring for the babies, yet she became even plumper and fairer than before. Liu Taiju was very happy because his wife had become even more beautiful. The old couple of the Liu family were also happy, as they had earned an extra income. Every month, they had to give Tsuehua 6 chen of silver, plus food and drink for special meals, and various supplies for the little baby. The money was burning away quickly. But ever since I picked up this little girl, every time I went to town, I would inexplicably find money. Sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's gold. I picked up a son, incredibly lucky. Could he be a koi fish? I picked up a daughter, a windfall from heaven. Could she be a pishio? I thought with amusement. My mother-in-law also grew fonder of the 2 children the more she looked at them. One day, she said, "Chunyang, would you like to name the children? It would be easier to address them. Then I'll use Lin as their surname and give them temporary names. Although I love them dearly, I also hope that one day they can reunite with their families. The son will be called Linyi. My daughter's name is Lin Er." My mother-in-law's eyes widened in disgust. Lin 1, Lin 2, she was illiterate. I explained, "It's a homophone, mother. I always feel I'm going to keep finding more children. How about we name them in the order we found them?" My mother-in-law was delighted to hear this. "Great, great. If they dare to abandon them, we dare to take them in." Little did she know her words would come true. It's only been half a year since I picked up Lin Er, and the barrage exploded again. Oh my God. The sweet novel's female lead ran away with her child. The twins were stolen by the malicious female supporting character and thrown to the peak of Wish Mountain, where they froze to death. How is this a sweet novel? Isn't this a tragic love story? I finally understood. This female lead was not that female lead. But how many damn female leads were there, anyway? I fumed and paced. Wishing Mountain was simply the mountain behind Red Maple Village, a very tall and massive mountain peak. It happened to be a heavy snow day, and I truly felt uncertain. I dared not tell my mother-in-law directly, only saying I needed to go out for a while. But I made sure to organize the leftover medicinal herbs and handed all the money and silver to her. I feared I might not return. I took the risk, braved the heavy snow, and struggled to the mountaintop. As if guided by some unseen force, I quickly found the twins on the vast mountaintop. At that moment, the wind and snow suddenly ceased. However, a bizarre scene unfolded. The outer layer of the swaddling clothes was frozen, but the child inside seemed untouched by the wind and snow. Vibrant and lively. How is this possible? Even I, who had come prepared, was nearly frozen stiff, let alone a tiny infant who had been maliciously abandoned. You really do see something new every day you live. While feeling puzzled, I took out the small spare shovel I carried with me and broke through the icy layer encasing the swaddling clothes. How truly strange. As I held the child in my arms, a wave of warmth transmitted from the child's body. The two children looked to be about 3 months old. I used the 2 prepared back baskets, carrying one child on my back and cradling another in my arms. There is a mountain path leading all the way from Wish Mountain to the summit. Although steep and treacherous, this morning brought the first snowfall of the year. The accumulated snow only reached halfway up the snow boots and hadn't yet frozen into slippery ice. Once the wind and snow ceased, the danger level decreased significantly. I was preparing to descend the mountain with my child when I spotted a hint of purplish red peeking through the snow. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be the legendary Tianshan snow lotus, and it was purplish red in color. I couldn't help but take a deep breath. This snow lotus grows in extremely harsh high-altitude environments. They are scarce and exceptionally precious. Although since I picked up Linyi, I've occasionally been able to gather rare medicinal herbs. But all the precious medicinal herbs from the past combined are not as valuable as this rare snow lotus. I carefully plucked the snow lotus. When I left, it was just noon. By the time I returned home, dusk had already fallen. My mother-in-law stood on the veranda, pacing back and forth, anxiously awaiting something, until she saw me. Then she rushed over. "Mother." My mother-in-law stared intently at me, and the next moment, tears welled up in her reddened eyes and streamed down her face. "I know I can't stop you, but I'm really scared you might never come back." She had already guessed everything, but she knew my mind was made up. I reached out to wipe her tears and couldn't help but choke up as I said, "Mother, I'm sorry for making you worry." At that moment, my mother-in-law noticed that my hands, which should have been cold, were actually slightly warm. She looked at me in surprise, then at the child in my arms. "Come on, quick, inside." Sure enough, something abnormal was bound to be sinister. I took the twins back inside, and we sat on the warm kang. The children, who had been normal, gradually became abnormal. Their little faces gradually flushed red, as if they were very hot and in great pain, and they cried loudly. At this moment, the mother-in-law had already invited Grandpa Yang over. He stepped forward to take their pulse and exclaimed, "What a potent poison." My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't surprise at the children being poisoned, but rather at Grandpa Yang's medical skill. "You diagnosed it so quickly. I've always heard his medical skills were mediocre." Nonsense. The 2 children might as well have poisoned written on their foreheads. Old Man Yang grabbed the twins' little hands. Each of their fingernails had a small black spot showing through. My medical skills are not refined enough to determine what kind of poison it is, but when the black spots cover the entire fingernail, that will be the moment of their death, I quickly said. But when I saw them, there were no black spots on their fingernails yet. Old Man Yang looked puzzled and asked, "Chunyang, why have you been picking up children so often lately? Where did you find them this time?" "I heard there were snow lotuses on the mountain peak, so I risked going up and found these 2 children abandoned there," I casually made up. Old Man Yang shook his head and sighed softly. "You really value money over your life." He listened carefully as I explained the children's condition. Old Man Yang analyzed. "In that case, extreme cold might be able to suppress and slow down the onset of their poisoning. As for detoxification, please find someone else as soon as possible." I asked, "Can they be fed?" Old Man Yang said, "Since they can't stand the warmth indoors, try feeding them cold milk." So, I planted the twins in the snowdrift in the yard. Sure enough, they looked much more comfortable and stopped crying. Attempting to feed them cold milk was also successful. In the evening, we hired Granny Liu to come help look after the children together. My mother-in-law and I took turns watching over the twins in the courtyard. I'll take the first watch, she'll take the second watch. By dawn, I rented a donkey cart and went with my mother-in-law and the twins to the medical clinic. The large medical clinic where I sold precious medicinal herbs was owned and operated by a renowned physician known as the Divine Doctor. Perhaps this poison can be cured. This poison is extremely evil. Named Winter's Flowing Fire, commonly known as hard to find for 1,000 gold pieces. Winter's Flowing Fire is the characteristic of this poison. I witnessed it yesterday, worth a fortune. Yet priceless, is the antidote herb, priceless as 10,000 gold. Yet even 10,000 gold cannot buy it. Dr. Song looked at the twins as if they were already dead, shaking his head and sighing. To cure this poison, you need to soak in a medicinal bath for 2 hours every day for 7 consecutive days, followed by acupuncture to stimulate the acupoints and expel the toxins. But the 7 rare herbs required for the medicinal bath are worth a fortune. 10,000 taels is 10,000 ounces of silver. How many years would I have to gather herbs to earn that much money? However, looking at the 2 children with their chubby little fists, round and smooth like pearls, with features as beautiful as a painting, so lovely they resembled the little figures on New Year's prints, I couldn't bear it. Dr. Song, I have over 500 taels of silver. Can the remaining medical fees be deferred, allowing me to pay them off by gathering herbs in the future? Dr. Song frowned at me. Madam Lin, I quickly knelt and kowtowed to him. Dr. Song, I beg you, I will definitely repay the money, not a single copper coin less. Ever since I picked up Lin Yi and Lin I've often had the good fortune to gather some precious medicinal herbs, and occasionally even found gold and silver. I've long since paid off the debt to Li's Medical Hall and still have several hundred taels saved up. Now, I can be considered someone with good fortune in accumulating wealth. It's only right to take a chance and fight for the lives of these 2 children. Madam Lin, please rise first. Dr. Song helped me to my feet. Over the past 6 months, you've sold us quite a lot of medicinal herbs. I believe you have the ability to repay the debt. However, he let out a deep sigh. As the saying goes, even 10,000 pieces of gold can't buy it. Among the 7 rare medicinal ingredients required, there is a purple-red Tianshan snow lotus that is extremely hard to find. I don't have it, and I don't know where to find it. Mrs. Lin, you should hurry home and prepare for the funeral arrangements for these 2 children. Dr. Song, with a physician's compassion, couldn't bear to continue and closed his eyes as he spoke. When he opened his eyes again, he found that I had disappeared. Hey, Mrs. Lin, why did you run off without even saying a word? Dr. Song, I didn't run away. I carried in a basket covered with a cloth bag. My mother-in-law was in the outer room watching the children and the medicinal herbs we had brought. Dr. Song, is this the rare snow lotus you mentioned? I opened the bag. Dr. Song's eyes lit up with amazement. An eye-opener, truly an eye-opener today. He gazed at the snow lotus with rare fascination. Yes, that's it, that's the one. Madam Lin, where did you get this from? I simply said. Dr. Song, I'm not boasting, but my luck and skill in gathering herbs are truly unmatched by ordinary people. As long as you can cure my child and allow me to delay paying part of the medical fees, from now on, all the herbs I gather will be delivered exclusively to you. To protect the children, I had already explained when I arrived that the twins were entrusted to me by a seriously ill relative who had passed away. Good. Upon hearing this, Dr. Song was so delighted that his eyes narrowed into slits. That very day, Dr. Song prepared a medicinal bath to treat the twins. I asked my mother-in-law to go home and fetch me some clean clothes. I stayed at the clinic with the twins for 7 days. My mother-in-law went home to take care of Lin Yi and Lin and on the 7th day, she came to pick us up with the donkey cart. After 7 days, the poison in the twins' bodies was completely cleared. The medical expenses are divided into 10,000 taels for the medicine and 500 taels for the consultation fee. After the snow lotus was used in the medicine, the remaining portion was weighed and valued at over 2 taels as dried medicinal material. Among the 7 precious medicinal ingredients, The snow lotus is the most expensive. The remaining medical expenses total 5,500 taels. This snow lotus is worth 1,000 gold per tael. But even 1,000 gold is hard to obtain. Dr. Song agreed to convert the remaining snow lotus into 3,000 taels of silver. I paid an additional 500 taels in cash. The medical bill still has an outstanding balance of 2,000 taels. For me, it remains a huge debt. What if I'm no longer lucky and no longer find money? Clutching the few dozen taels I had left and thinking of my 4 young children waiting to be fed, I felt deeply unsettled. When my mother-in-law came, I asked her to look after the twins while I went out to buy a few things. In truth, I just wanted to see if I could find some money on the street. Good news, I found some money. I picked up a tael of silver. It's worth mentioning that when I first picked up the largest sum of money I found was 20 taels of silver. Unfortunately, this kind of magical power gradually diminished. A little is better than nothing. Contentment brings constant joy. I bit the broken silver with my teeth, feeling quite satisfied. Your mother is working hard to gather herbs. If it really comes to it, once you're a bit older, you'll just have to join me in eating chaff and vegetables. Being alive is still better than being dead. I went to buy some cloth and cotton, hoping to have my mother-in-law make a few winter clothes for the children, and also prepare some spring and summer outfits. On the way back to the clinic, I saw a restaurant setting up tables at the entrance, with a burst of gongs and drums as they shouted, draw a lot and win silver. You can get silver by drawing lots. Hearing this, I couldn't help but stop and watch. I heard there's a flower field behind this restaurant. In the spring and summer seasons, it blooms in full splendor, with flowers as beautiful as a fairyland. Unfortunately, it is now winter. There are countless people in the world who love money as much as I do. In just a moment, the common people crowded the front of the tavern. A girl in red stood at the entrance of the tavern and said, "Today, the 10,000 fortune sticks drawing at Red Fall Tower is about to begin." I quickly asked the person next to me what the 10,000 fortune sticks were. That person was quite kind and explained it to me. One can draw from 10,000 bamboo slips. Bamboo slips are divided into blank slips and silver slips. A blank slip means no silver was drawn. There are 4 types of silver slips: 1 tael, 10 taels, 100 taels, and 1,000 taels. Such good fortune. At that moment, the girl in red cast a flirtatious glance and asked with a smile, "Who wants to draw the first lot?" I quickly shouted, "Me, draw me." "Oh no, I'll draw, let me draw first." After I finished my excited outburst, I noticed that the onlookers were surprisingly calm. No one was competing with me. The girl in red stepped forward, took my hand, and said, "Well then, madam, please go ahead." I was led inside and brought before the red cylinder filled with countless fortune sticks. However, a young woman in white standing nearby first handed me a basket labeled "Donation for fortune sticks." I asked in confusion, "What is this for?" The woman in white frowned and said, "Of course. You pay first, then draw your fortune stick." What? I finally understood. No wonder no one was competing with me just now. So I was the sucker, the little fat sheep. "How much?" The lady in white replied, "The first lot is 10 taels of silver." The lady in red asked with a smile, "Are you not from this town? Have you not heard of the Red Mansion's annual 10,000 lots event?" I shook my head. Just as you said, it turned out that the Red Mansion was a rather famous restaurant. There are dozens of them. The main building is in the capital. The Wanqian Tube is a type of lottery game. The first draw costs 10 taels of silver. After that, 1 tael of silver per lot, madam. Rest assured, the 10,000 lot tube was established with the late Emperor's permission. Red Mansion would never dare to engage in any deceit. However, 10 taels of silver would be enough to support my child for a long time. I cautiously asked, "Can I change my mind and not participate?" The lady in white frowned and said, "The Red Mansion has never had such a precedent." The lady in red also spoke up. "Outside the tavern, the plaque clearly states the rules. This time." I was truly careless. Seeing me like this, the lady in red comforted, "Madam, why not think about it? With 10 taels of silver, if you win 1,000 taels, wouldn't that be a huge profit?" Me, since the establishment of your Crimson Pavilion, has anyone ever drawn the 1,000 tael lot? The girl in red laughed and said, "Yes, I do. 10 years ago, at the Crimson Pavilion in the capital, someone did draw the thousand-tail lot. The girl in white covered her mouth and chuckled. Oh, come on, who is that? That's none other than His Majesty the Emperor. In every red mansion, there is only 1,000-tail stick among 10,000. As the saying goes, 1 in 10,000 is like a drop in the ocean. Such a lucky individual must be a dragon among men, possessing the aura of an emperor, the fortune of a true dragon. Are they just trying to flatter His Majesty the Emperor? I couldn't help but laugh. The girl in white glared at me angrily. Why are you laughing? Do you not believe me? I quickly said. I believe you, I believe you. The girl in white snorted coldly. I don't care if you believe me or not, but you can't break the rules of the Red Mansion. Either pay to draw a lot, or go see the officials. I immediately took out my purse, pulled out 1 tael of silver, and tossed it into the basket. The bamboo slips were thick at the head and thin at the tail, with a hollow carved into the head and sealed with wax. The blank slips had no writing on them. The silver slips had characters on them, which were 1, 10, 100, and 1,000. I randomly draw one from the fortune stick tube. Consider it a lesson bought with money. The woman in white takes the stick and melts the sealing wax in front of me. Suddenly, her expression changes. What's wrong? The girl in red couldn't help but step forward, and upon seeing it, she exclaimed in surprise, "A 1,000-tail lot. It's actually a 1,000-tail lot." My legs trembled, and I nearly knelt down. The bearing of an emperor, the fortune of a true dragon, holding the 1,000-tail banknote. I felt it was extremely hot to handle. Will you kill me to silence me and take back this 1,000 taels? It's not that I'm honest, but rather, I'm testing them. If I sense even the slightest hint of trouble, then I'll voluntarily return the money to them. I love money, but I value my life more. They burst into laughter, as if they had heard the biggest joke. The girl in white said, "You're underestimating our Red Mansion too much." The girl in red said, "To be honest with you, our proprietor goes to see the emperor every 5 years to report the lottery results. In other words, if someone else draws the 1,000-tail lot like His Majesty, even if our master doesn't receive the reward, it would still be considered good news." That makes perfect sense. Then if I go out, will I be robbed by others? I let out a soft sigh and said sorrowfully, "To be honest, my son is seriously ill. We came here to find a divine doctor for treatment. This 1,000 taels isn't even enough to cover the medical expenses." They looked at me sympathetically and came up with an idea. "Later, we'll just beat you out, saying you drew the empty lot but weren't satisfied, cursing and grumbling." Excellent idea. Thank you, ladies. Then, I was beaten out, but I still wasn't at ease. I returned the 1,000 taels to Dr. Song and explained the situation to him, asking to stay for one more night. Dr. Song immediately agreed and said with a smile, "Madam Lin, your luck is truly beyond ordinary people." At the hour of Marrow the next day, we set off on our return journey in the dark. At 3/4 past the hour of Chen, we arrived home smoothly. Lin Yi could already recognize faces. After not seeing me for days, the little one pouted at me, his eyes welling up with tears before he started wailing, looking so aggrieved and pitiful. "Oh dear, are you missing your mama?" I picked him up and spent quite a while comforting him before he finally calmed down. Dr. Song's 2-month-old granddaughter had a wet nurse with ample milk supply. The twins had been freeloading meals at the clinic. Dr. Song said they were over 4 months old. Tsuehua had plenty of milk, but couldn't keep up with so many children. Her 1-year-old son Liu Nyonyo had already been weaned. Lin Yi, who should be over a year old now, won't be able to get a single drop of milk anymore. Even Lin who is just over 7 months old, will have to start eating supplementary food. Giving up the wet nurse Kui Hua to his younger siblings, 2 more children have been added. Not only has Kui Hua's compensation increased from 6 chen per month to 8 chen per month, but they've also hired Aunt Liu to help take care of the children, paying her 2 chen per month. I carry a heavy debt of 1,000 gold and the burden of supporting my family, so I diligently gather herbs every day, not daring to slack off. My mother-in-law sees this and feels the pain in her heart. One day, though my face was full of exhaustion, I still rose at the crack of dawn, tidied up, and prepared to go gather herbs. My mother-in-law couldn't hold back and said, "Enough, enough. Chunyang, you can't keep picking up children anymore." It would have been fine if she hadn't said anything. As soon as she spoke, The bullet comments that had been silent for over 3 months reappeared. The shameless villain took advantage of the male lead's seclusion to come seeking revenge. The female lead fell off a cliff, her fate unknown. The 3 children were also caught up by the enemy and brutally killed one by one. The male lead searched for his wife and children for 10 years. It's just too heartbreaking. At this moment, in the warm spring of March, peaches and plums vie in beauty. The children's blood red as maple leaves. I didn't even have time to put down my medicine basket. Turning around to dash outside. Chunyang, wait. The peaches and plums vie in beauty in the bullet comments likely isn't just describing the spring scenery. Red maple trees can be found everywhere, but there is a mountain path beside a stream, where aside from the surrounding maple trees, the road is lined half with peach trees and half with plum trees. I went searching along that mountain path. Sure enough, I came across a horse-drawn carriage, and several adults lying covered in blood. These individuals all bore sword wounds and were dead beyond doubt. But where is the child? There was no sound of people around. No more bullet comments appeared. I took a deep breath and thought calmly. Judging from the bullet comments, the child is also here. I searched carefully around, not letting any clue escape my notice. In the warm spring of March, the green grass was lush, and the footprints were conspicuous. I followed some footprints and arrived at an old peach tree 100 yards away from the carriage. On the peach tree, blood continuously dripped, staining the ground beneath it a shocking, eye-catching red. I looked up and was so frightened by the gruesome scene before me that my legs went weak. Bastard, worse than a beast. 3 children, each about 1 year old, were hanging upside down from a thick branch of an old peach tree, their feet bound, their hair was disheveled, and blood flowed from their heads, soaking through their hair, dripping down drop by drop. While cursing, I set down the medicine basket and pulled out the herbs. Quickly climbed up the tree with the medicine basket. I pulled a child up, cut the rope with the sickle used for gathering herbs, placed the child into the medicine basket, crossed the cut rope to wrap the mouth of the medicine basket. Carrying the medicine basket, he carefully climbed down the tree, using this method. Bring the children one by one under the tree. The child's injuries are all on the scalp. The scalp has many blood vessels, so bleeding may be more profuse. The beast did this to make the child bleed to death. As the bullet comments said, one by one, kill them all. But these beasts never expected that a Lin Chunyang would suddenly appear. The bleeding from the head is profuse, but not fatal. If we kill him with one sword strike, then there really is no way out at all. I searched through the medicinal herbs. Among the herbs gathered today, there's quite a bit of seeing blood clear. The serum can be used for trauma to quickly stop bleeding. Chunyang, I've finally found you. The mother-in-law ran until she was out of breath. You run faster than a rabbit, disappearing in the blink of an eye. I, with my old bones, simply couldn't keep up and had to take many detours to find you. Oh dear, what's going on here? Mother, you've come at just the right moment. I'm worried about taking care of 3 children all by myself. The mother-in-law carried the other child on her back. I carried one in the medicine basket on my back and held another in my arms. There was no time to worry about the remaining herbs. The night had grown deep. Old Man Yang had already bandaged the child's wound. I looked at the children, their small faces pale and their eyes tightly shut, as if already consumed by death, and my heart trembled slightly. How are they doing? Old Man Yang shook his head and sighed softly. They've lost too much blood. The odds are against them. If they can wake up tomorrow morning, then they've pulled through. Otherwise, so tonight is the most critical. Old Master Yang asked, do you have any ginseng at home? I nodded. Brew ginseng soup. Feed it to them little by little, and then have them hold ginseng slices in their mouths. Good. I immediately went to fetch the ginseng, in Hongfeng village. Only our family knows how to gather medicinal herbs, because our family has never been well off, and later when my husband fell seriously ill, we ended up owing a lot in medical expenses. Now that I have several children at home, outsiders look at me and feel sorry for my poverty. They always thought I hadn't gathered any valuable medicinal herbs. I wouldn't be foolish enough to tell anyone. Just last month, I found a wild ginseng over 100 years old, still hidden, not yet sold. Old Man Yang, now in his 70s, couldn't endure the physical strain any longer. Next, it all depends on whether the children can wake up tomorrow. So, After giving his instructions, he went home. I brewed the ginseng soup according to the dosage he specified and slowly fed it to the 3 children. They were triplets, probably about a year and a half old. Although they were unconscious, I managed to get a little bit of the soup into them. I placed thin slices of ginseng in their mouths. Then I went to the west room and, with my mother-in-law, carried the twins over, one in each of our arms, one on the left, one on the right. Let the injured triplet lie in the middle. My mother-in-law whispered, "Can you tell me what this means?" I narrowed my eyes. Life is mysterious, in times like these. After exhausting medicine, don't overlook the mystical. My mother-in-law pointed at the twins. Metaphysics. But why them too? I laughed and said, because they're twins, dragon, phoenix. My mother-in-law looked exasperated. Dragon and phoenix, that's something you can just say out loud. Be careful, walls have ears, even for twins. Commoners couldn't use the words dragon and phoenix, they could only be called twin children. Didn't I say it in private? Daughter, I will personally watch over them today. You should go and rest first, as you will have to manage the entire household tomorrow. My mother-in-law nodded and said, then call for me when you're tired. After my mother-in-law left, I went over and gently patted Lin Shan's little head. I always feel as if she is my sister, but the third in line, the girl's name really didn't have a pleasant sound, so they chose a homophone character, Shan. Then she gently patted Lin Sai's little head again, softly whispering, if you are truly a dragon and a phoenix, then help your mother firmly guard these 3 older siblings, and never let anything take them away. I stayed by the children's side. I didn't sleep a wink all night. As the sun rose in the east, hope finally arrived. One child's eyelid fluttered slightly, a child moved a finger, another one whimpered weakly. I quickly got up to open the door. Mother, please go fetch Uncle Yang. My mother-in-law was both surprised and overjoyed. Without even stopping the feeding of Lin Yi, she slung Lin over her back with one hand, and with the other hand still holding the bowl and spoon, she dashed out. Would you like to put the bowl down first, or put the baby down first? Lin Yi, just over a year old and holding his little spoon to eat by himself, didn't understand why his grandmother suddenly grabbed his little sister and ran off. He widened his dark, peach blossom-like eyes, his little face completely bewildered. Good, you've all actually pulled through. After finishing his examination, Old Man Yang spoke with a tone of certainty, yet it was tinged with surprise. Last night. I didn't want to speak too definitively, afraid you wouldn't be able to accept it, but their condition was almost impossible. I asked, but my ginseng has miraculous effects, maybe a bit of both. What do you mean? Old Man Yang laughed. Perhaps the heavens are watching over us. I smiled. Then we should thank the heavens. Old Man Yang held the ginseng slices and said, this ginseng is truly a rare treasure, but these triplets are also extraordinary. I don't understand. Old Man Yang carefully felt the children's bones and said, their bone structure is exceptional. In the martial arts world, they would undoubtedly be prodigies in martial arts training. I recalled the content of the bullet comments and the sword wounds on the people who were killed. Could they be martial artists? We are just ordinary common folk, a family of women and children, and we truly cannot withstand such terrifying power. Please, sir, keep their situation confidential for us. Old Man Yang waved his hand and said, welcome to our Red Maple Village. Your family now, Chunyang. It's because of you that these children are here. I admire you, old man. He looked at the triplets and sincerely wished, these little ones will surely grow up strong and healthy. The deceased were reported by the village chief. It was also said that 3 children were found hanging from trees, their deaths gruesome, and they had already been buried. The county constable came to verify and concluded it was a case of Jianghu killings. The authorities disliked dealing with Jianghu affairs the most, so the case was closed. At first, when I found Lin Yi, I went to report it, but I found the county magistrate didn't take it seriously at all. I understand. These days, how could there be only a few abandoned children? And I feel the timing isn't right yet. Exposing too much might invite trouble instead, if their families don't come looking for them. I will raise them myself and teach them with all my heart. The triplets were injured on the scalp and lost too much blood. I went to find Dr. Song, got the prescription, and slowly nursed them back to health. After a week of recuperation, I was finally back to being lively and energetic. At first, I was a bit dazed. But later, just like Lin Yi and the others, I became sweet and adorable, always wanting to stick close to me and also very fond of sticking close to my mother-in-law, every day. Calling out Mom and Grandma so sweetly, it softened everyone's hearts. One day, my mother-in-law gave them a bath. After soaking in warm water for a while, a small dark blue totem tattoo would appear on the back of their necks. There were rabbits, horses, and snakes. The mother-in-law was very puzzled. She said they should indeed be triplets, but why were their zodiac signs different? I said, then it's not the zodiac animal, but the time of day. Triplets cannot be born at the same time. The rabbit is also known as the Mao rabbit, referring to the Mao hour. The snake is also known as the Sai snake, referring to the Sai hour. Horse is also known as Wu horse, referring to the hour of Wu. Therefore, the order is rabbit, snake, horse. The totem rabbit is a girl, and I named her Wu. The snake is a boy, named Lu. The horse is also a girl, named Qi. As per Old Man Yang's auspicious words, they grew up strong and healthy. 3 more children were added, all still young. And there weren't enough hands to take care of them. Old Man Yang had only 1 son, but he had 6 grandchildren and already 4 great-grandchildren. With too many mouths to feed, life was inevitably tight. Old Man Yang had once saved the lives of several of the children, so when I learned that his 12-year-old granddaughter wanted to follow me in gathering herbs, I agreed to take her as my apprentice. I also hired his 17-year-old grandson, who was exceptionally skilled at cooking, to come to my house during the day to handle meals and chores like chopping firewood and carrying water, for taels of silver per month. This way, my mother-in-law can also free up some time. It has been 2 full years since we picked up the triplets. Compared to Lin Yi bringing good luck and Lin Er bringing wealth, the triplets have yet to show any miraculous fortune, but they have huge appetites, 3 times that of their eldest brother, Lin Yi. It's okay. I gather herbs diligently every day, enough to support them. They are also the most mischievous. It seems as if they have endless energy in their bodies, but they are obedient and well-behaved, very endearing. I told my mother-in-law that, as long as it was safe, she should not restrict their natural abilities. So, being active, they were very diligent and enthusiastic. For example, when my mother-in-law went to the chicken coop to collect eggs, they would follow her like 3 little tails every single time. However, when their little hands picked up the eggs and gently held them, the eggs would shatter into a complete mess. They saw the old lady neighbor herding a flock of ducks alone from the riverbank. So they grabbed a branch to help drive the ducks. With a light flick of the branch, they ended up sending a few ducks flying. Cuehua's family was catching their 1-month-old piglet to castrate it. Liu Nyonyo brought the triplets along to watch the commotion. The triplets eagerly helped catch the piglets. With remarkable agility, they quickly caught 1 piglet each and happily tossed them to Old Man Liu, but the piglets hit the wall and died. It's fine, I'll compensate for each one. Born with great strength. This proves that my son truly has an extraordinary physique and is a martial arts prodigy. Congratulations. Until one day, Lin Wu and Lin Lu did something absolutely terrifying. That afternoon, Liu Nyonyo suggested they play a game of eagle catches chicks. Everyone drew lots to take turns being the eagle. If a chick was caught by the eagle, it would be eaten. Lin Yi drew the longest stick and was the first to be the eagle. The 3-year-old triplets seemed to understand that their older brother wouldn't really harm them. Caught and giggling non-stop, obediently letting big brother hold her, he gently nibbled her little arm, as if eating her up. Liu Nyonyo drew the second longest stick, so he would be the eagle second. That's when it happened. The 2-year-old twins, being short with stubby legs, were about to be caught. Seeing this, Lin Wu grabbed Lin Shan with both hands, hoisted her onto her head like a sack, and sprinted wildly to escape the eagle. Lin Lu followed suit, rescuing Lin Sai in the same way. However, as Lin Shan and Lin Sai were carried on their heads and dashed around, all they could see was the blue sky above, and they cried out in terror. Mother-in-law and Cuehua were in the backyard airing out medicinal herbs when they heard the crying. They rushed out immediately and witnessed this astonishing scene. In her panic and urgency, mother-in-law shouted, "Lin Wu, Lin Lu, put your younger siblings down right now." Seeing that their usually loving grandmother seemed very angry, Lin Wu and Lin Lu obediently put down their younger siblings. However, their strength was extraordinary. The twins were thrown so hard their eyes rolled back in their heads. When I got home and learned about it, I asked Old Man Yang, who had examined the twins, to understand their condition. Entering the room, I saw Lin Wu and Lin Lu crouched fearfully in a small corner by the door. Their little faces were full of confusion and unease. From time to time, he glanced at the twins lying on the kang, his eyes filled with concern. "What are you squatting for?" I grabbed one with each hand and pulled them up. "Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I was wrong." The two of them nervously lowered their heads. I gently patted their little heads and said softly, "You didn't hurt me, so there's no need to apologize to me." They looked up at me, then exchanged a glance with each other. Then they walked over to the edge of the kang and reached out to hold the hands of the twins. Lin Wu said, "Shanshan, I didn't mean to. I didn't want you to be caught by the eagle. Nyo-Nyo's bite really hurts." Lin Lu, holding Lin Sai's hand, also said, "Sai, I'm sorry, your brother just wanted to protect you." Old Man Yang said the twins were fine, mainly just frightened. The twins had once suffered from severe poisoning, and their health had always been relatively weak. But they were not seriously harmed. At this moment, the twins looked a bit pale, but they had already recovered. Lin Shan held Lin Wu's hand and smiled, saying, "It's not sister's fault. Shan is just timid." Hearing this, Lin Wu climbed onto the kang, lay down beside her, and kissed her little cheek, saying, Shan isn't timid, she's just still young. Then will sister still take me to play in the future?" Lin Wu nodded vigorously. Amham. Lin Sai tightly held Lin Lu's hand and praised, "Brother is so strong. Brother is amazing. But when you protect me in the future, can you be a little gentler?" Lin Lu scratched his head. "I'll definitely be more careful from now on." I smiled and said, "All right, as long as you've made things clear yourselves, that's good. From now on, if anything happens, you should explain it clearly just like you did now. We are one family, and we must always love and protect each other." The children nodded. However, starting from that day, I still chose to take the triplets with me when gathering herbs. Their strength could easily cause accidental harm to ordinary people. I want them to realize this as soon as possible. Let them understand what is inanimate, what is living. With inanimate objects, one might indulge their power, but with living beings, one must always control their power. Moreover, their immense strength makes the wilderness an ideal place for them to train. I sought out Dr. Song to prepare insect repellent. This medicine can last for up to 5 hours, effectively keeping snakes and insects at bay. Although it is expensive, being able to protect the triplets makes it well worth the cost. The triplets actually adapted very well to this kind of upbringing. They quickly realized they had extraordinary strength, and they preferred the wilderness even more. Yesterday, the three of them worked together to uproot a dead tree, chopped some of it down, and dragged it all the way home, saying it was for Grandma to use as firewood. It was the season for spring plowing. Today, I returned from gathering herbs a bit early and passed by a field ridge. An elderly man in the village, who had no ox, was laboriously pulling a wooden plow to till the land, inch by inch. The triplets, with my permission, ran over to help. Under the old man's guidance, the triplets took turns helping to pull the wooden plow. In just half an hour, they finished plowing the old man's entire acre of land. The old man clicked his tongue in admiration. "Chunyang, these 3 kids of yours are born with incredible strength. In just a while, you've finished all the work that would take an old man a month." "Thank you." I smiled and said, "You're welcome," but in my heart, I felt a bit sorry for my son. On the way home, I asked quietly, "Are you tired?" They all shook their heads. Lin Chi, "Is that all? We can plow 10 acres of land for the old man in a day." Lin Lu, "Mom, should we farm our land?" Lin Wu, "Mom, you've been gathering herbs all day. Are you tired? I can carry you on my shoulders and run home." Me, "That's really not necessary." When we got home, the triplets were taken by Tsuehua to take a bath. My apprentice, Yang Xing, had gone to town on business and wasn't around today. My mother-in-law and I sorted through the medicinal herbs we had gathered. I told my mother-in-law about the plowing and how the triplets tried to carry me and run. My mother-in-law laughed uncontrollably. "Just imagine the comical scene of you being carried on the heads of 3-year-olds, running all over the village." Ha ha ha. The corner of my mouth twitched violently. After laughing, my mother-in-law couldn't help but sigh sadly. My ill-fated son, on his deathbed. was still worried about you being alone and helpless. He certainly never expected that you would end up picking up several children, and you might even continue to pick up more. I immediately covered my mother-in-law's mouth. Mother, please don't say any more. However, it was already too late. Before my eyes, dozens of bullet comments instantly appeared. Woo-woo, our little male lead who excels in both medicine and poison is about to begin his tragic childhood. His entire family was slaughtered. To survive, he had to jump into the river even though he couldn't swim. Fortunately, he managed to cling to a piece of driftwood and floated along with the current. After drifting for 3 days, he was picked up by a pervert. Molestation, abuse. It wasn't until the male lead turned 10 that he fought back and killed the old pervert. A young man's heart flutters, only to discover the girl he likes was sent by his arch-rival, so he imprisons her. Uses her to test poisons. Later, the girl fakes her death to escape, and the obsessive male lead chases after her in a fiery pursuit of redemption. A dark and miserable childhood left him unable to laugh or cry. Coldness and darkness became his armor. Ha, a vicious scumbag, and you still pity him. So obsessed with men. Yeah, right, I just love men. Got a problem? Come and fight me. I love women, and I love men. Is that not allowed? Is it against the law? It's not about loving men, is it? I don't think this male lead was born evil. If only he had felt a shred of warmth, he wouldn't have turned into such a gloomy, bitter man. The young man in white, peerless in poison and medicine, he could have been so wonderful too. Oh my God, I really want him to be saved. The little male lead is about to drift to Red Maple Village. I really want to cross over and fish him out. Save him, huh? This time it's not the child of the male and female leads, but the male lead himself. There's a bit more information. Daughter, you all go ahead and eat. No need to wait for me. I'm going out for a bit. I put down the medicinal herbs and turned to leave. My mother-in-law couldn't help but mutter, going to pick up another child again. You really are a peculiar person. I ran all the way to the river, but didn't see anyone. I followed the river downstream, and as far as I could see, there was no one in sight, so I gathered a pile of dry branches from the woods by the river. I started a fire by the riverbank. The river wasn't very wide. Even at night, by the light of the fire, one could see. I kept watch until the sun set, kept watch until night fell, kept watch until deep into the night. The fire was fed with more and more wood. It was impossible to tell how much time had passed when finally, a child of a few years old drifted over slowly, clinging to a piece of floating wood. In the darkness, he saw the firelight by the riverbank and a faint voice called out, "Save, save me," I urged. "Hold on tight, don't let go." I plunged into the river, quickly swam over, and grabbed him. "You can let go now." The child still clung tightly to the deadwood, refusing to let go. "Didn't you ask me to save you? If I didn't want to save you, why would I have jumped into the water? Don't worry, I'm a strong swimmer. I can support you, and we'll make it to shore together." Hearing this, the child finally felt at ease and entrusted himself to me. I scooped him up with one arm and slowly swam back to shore. I had left in such a hurry that it only occurred to me while waiting that the child, having been floating in the water, must be very cold. I took off my outer garment and waited by the fire to warm it, holding him as I returned to the fire. I was about to take off his clothes, however, he was nervous and shy. Clutching his clothes tightly, I turned my back and said, "Your clothes are soaked through. You can have my outer robe. Take off your clothes and wrap yourself in my robe first." Remembering the barrage of comments, I added, "Your health comes first. Only by staying alive can you have a future to speak of." The little male lead finally made a move. After a while, he said, "I'm ready." I turned around and went to pick up his wet clothes. Silk and satin were not something ordinary commoners could afford to wear, but I didn't ask, only saying, "Looking at you, you don't have the strength to walk. If you don't mind, then I'll carry you on my back." He looked up, his handsome little face showing deep, dark eyes, and his thin lips parted slightly. "Thank you." I carried him home on my back. Everyone at home was already asleep. I reheated the leftovers, and we ate in silence, one big and one small. He was unusually quiet, as if lost in profound grief, for 3 days straight, aside from eating and drinking. He spent the entire day sitting alone in the corner of the heated brick bed, hugging his knees. It was the same at night, sleeping while sitting, as if his heart was filled with unease, confusion, and despair. My mother-in-law was worried about his health and asked me what to do, just right at the door. I didn't lower my voice. Instead, I deliberately raised it a few notches to make sure he could hear, saying, "Let him be, don't bother with him. Do you want to live? How do you want to live? I believe he will figure it out on his own." Indeed, the next day at marrow hour, 5 to 7 a.m., I woke up and went out, hearing the noise. He opened the door of the west room and walked toward me. "May I ask you a few questions?" I said. "Yes." He stood before me, lifting his gaze to look at me. In the dim morning light, neither of us could clearly see the other's expression. However, his tone was serious and uneasy as he asked, "If I told you that I might bring danger to you and your family, would you regret saving me?" I said, "It's already been saved, so why talk about what ifs?" He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." My tone remained calm. "So, whether it's us or you, we should only look forward." He seemed a bit surprised and looked up at me again. I urged, "Go on and ask the next question. I need to hurry and gather herbs, otherwise, what will I use to support you? I have no family left, and nowhere to go. May I stay in your home?" Without a second thought, I replied cheerfully, "Of course, I gather herbs, so I can afford to support you." Then, "Even if I don't call you mother like your children do, would that still be all right?" I said. "Whether you call me aunt or maternal aunt, I don't mind." However, after thinking for a moment, he said seriously, "The one who gave birth to me is my mother. The one who raised me is also my mother." He knelt down and slowly kowtowed 3 times. "I am fortunate to have been saved by you, and even more fortunate to become your family." Subai kowtows in gratitude for mother's great kindness. I helped him up. "From now on, in public, you shall be called Lin Bai." He nodded. "Good, I understand your meaning. How old are you?" He replied, 5 years and 3 months. How can a child of a few years be so mature and steady? I couldn't help but pinch his little cheek. He was taken aback by the sudden intimate gesture. Pretending not to be surprised, I said, "Since we're family now, I won't hide things from you. All the children in this house, just like you, are not my biological children." This time, he was completely stunned. "Huh?" I ruffled his little head. "I will treat you just as I have treated them. I don't know what you've been through. Whether you tell me or not makes no difference to me, but you're still young. You must first grow and become strong before you can do what you wish in your heart. Isn't that right?" He bowed. Lin Bai will remember mother's teachings. From then on, Lin Bai gradually integrated into the group. He was the oldest among the children. He took the initiative to shoulder the responsibilities of an older brother. He would help his younger brothers bathe and teach them how to dress. He said, "Men and women should not touch when giving and receiving. You are little men now, and you will grow up to be big men. You need to learn to do your own things." I thought to myself, isn't this just a normal child? What gloomy man? What poison doctor? He's clearly the warm big brother in the group of children. Until one day, my mother-in-law complained that more than half of the vegetables and fruits in the backyard garden had been ruined by mice. Fortunately, the medicine storage was secure. It would have been a disaster if the medicinal herbs had suffered the same fate. Then, Lin Bai calmly said, "Grandma, don't worry. I'll prepare a batch of rat poison tomorrow and wipe out the entire mouse family." Mother-in-law, she privately told me, "Xiao Bai has a bit of a sinister aura. In short, he's a bit strange." But I said with delight, "He's only 5 years old and can already make poison. Truly a genius." As for that gloomy man, I believe that those who grow up in sunlight and warmth will never be fond of darkness and cold. Indeed, my child is both kind and warm-hearted, and indeed, as the bullet comment said, Lin Bai was unparalleled in both medicine and poison. He prepared a marrow-cleansing pill for the twins. They must have been afflicted by a very potent poison, which damaged their foundation. Their bodies will grow increasingly weak, unlikely to enjoy a normal lifespan. But as long as the marrow is cleansed and the meridians are unblocked, one can be reborn. Of course, I didn't dare let the twins take it directly. Instead, I first took it to Dr. Song. The result was Dr. Song exclaiming in amazement, "Marvelous, absolutely marvelous. Madam Lin, which divine physician crafted this medicinal pill? Is there a prescription?" Afterward, Lin Bai prepared separate medications for the triplets. They all possess great strength, but each in a different way. Lin Wu exerts force from within, requiring internal energy regulation, Lin Qi uses the sinews to exert force, needing to nourish the bones and foundation. Both Lin and Lu are strong, and both need nurturing. In the future, he might become a legendary figure in the martial world, of course. I'm still not entirely at ease, so I went to find Dr. Song again. So, Dr. Song tearfully begged me to introduce this miraculous doctor to him. And it would be even better if he could become this miraculous doctor's disciple. Me, shouldn't you calm down first? You're already over 50 years old, and my son is only just over 5 years old. Regarding this, my mother-in-law was deeply moved. You not only miraculously pick up children, spring swallow, but the children you've been for over 4 years now. Just when I thought the bullet comments wouldn't appear anymore, I picked up the 10th child. Unlike the previous 9 times, this time I picked up the child first before seeing the bullet comments. I've never seen such an outrageous male lead. When encountering assassins, he takes his beloved wife but forgets his daughter. Haha, this silly couple. So caught up in their lovey-dovey moments after returning home that they didn't realize their daughter was missing until 6 months later. Years later, the female lead saw the top courtesan at the Spring Breeze Pavilion in the capital. The courtesan had a face similar to her daughter's, along with the same brown curly hair. Upon investigating, she discovered that the courtesan was her long-lost daughter, another tragic child of the male and female leads, but in just a few years. I've already picked up 4, 5, 10 children through bullet comments. Oh my goodness gracious. Please, protagonists, stop losing your children. I really can't afford to raise any more. The little girl was a child not yet a year old. She had sparse, light brown curly hair, a fair and rosy little face, plump pink lips, and a pair of large, round, beautiful eyes, like the bright morning sun, like the beautiful evening glow, like a clear spring, transparent and pure. I named her Lin Shi. Little Lin Shi immediately became the family's beloved treasure. At that time, I found her on my way from Red Maple Village to the town. In the forest, there was an abandoned carriage and a child who had just woken up, crying loudly. Perhaps, Lin Shi was not only forgotten by her parents. Even those who were pursuing her parents had not expected there to be a sleeping child in the carriage. The biggest reason is that any normal person would find it hard to imagine parents who, when faced with danger, would run away themselves and completely forget about their little daughter. As the comments said, half a year later, the couple finally remembered their daughter. They hurriedly started searching for her. From Hongfeng village to the town, the area wasn't very large. Moreover, the child's appearance was quite distinctive, and I didn't make any special effort to hide him. They soon came knocking at my door. From then on, it seemed as if the right moment had arrived. And the biological parents of all the children I had picked up started coming to claim them one after another. Except for Lin Bai, his entire family was wiped out, and he had no relatives left in the world. I was afraid he would be sad, so I comforted him, but he smiled and said, "If my family's spirits in heaven knew that I had such a wonderful foster mother like you, they would surely be happy for me. Lin Bai is willing to serve by your side forever." It was only then that I learned about his background. 20 years later, the capital city, Red Mansion Pavilion. Aside from the 10,000 lottery tubes, Red Mansion Pavilion is just an ordinary tavern. Compared to other taverns, it only brews slightly more fragrant wine, serves slightly tastier food, has a slightly more elegant atmosphere, and the storyteller's tales are a bit more captivating. I particularly enjoy the last point. Every day, we come to show our support. Unfortunately today, the storyteller is unwell and didn't show up. Yangxing said, "Master, since we can't listen to the storytelling, shall we go back?" I pointed to the tea and snacks on the table. "Let's eat and drink. No need to waste them." The Red Mansion has 3 floors in total. The 3rd floor consists of private rooms, however, for listening to storytelling and enjoying the view. The 2nd floor is the most suitable. The 2nd floor is divided into 3 separate compartments: 1st class, 2nd class, and 3rd class. Each room must be booked 10 days in advance and is quite expensive. However, the room I'm in, room B, doesn't require a reservation, because my son, Lin Shan, has already reserved the entire place for me. There is no storyteller today, but interestingly enough, the guests in rooms A and C are quite interesting. A guest in room A asked, "Brother Liu, His Majesty summoned you urgently to the palace last night. Was His Majesty unwell?" That Brother Liu replied, "It was Her Majesty the Empress Dowager who returned from her travels and suffered a headache. However, I couldn't diagnose the cause. Fortunately, that person also entered the palace and immediately identified the cause. The other person understood but wondered,
Is that divine doctor out of his mind, with such excellent medical skills? Why is he unwilling to accept the imperial favor and stay in the palace? Instead, he insists on guarding a clinic and a pharmacy every day, Brother Liu said. Everyone has their own aspirations. I have some acquaintance with Dr. Bai. It seems that pharmacy was the wish of his adoptive mother. I heard that his adoptive mother was adopted by the Lin family when she was young. She gathered herbs with the Lin family head and later married the young master of the Lin family. Unfortunately, the young master of the Lin family passed away in his prime. Before his death, he regretted not being able to fulfill his father's dying wish, to honor her father-in-law, who was also her mentor. His adoptive mother opened this pharmacy, thus fulfilling the old man's wish. I see. But how did he dare to defy the imperial decree? Brother Liu replied, I didn't know either until last night, when I finally understood. Lin Bai is actually the grandson of the former head of the imperial hospital. Back then, Empress Zhong was out of favor. In order to win back the emperor's favor, she faked a pregnancy. But a fake pregnancy couldn't be concealed forever, so she framed imperial physician Lin, accusing him of causing her miscarriage. Imperial physician Lin was imprisoned, and Empress Zhong, fearing that His Majesty would uncover the truth, sent someone to poison him in prison and then slaughtered his entire family overnight. Not even the 2 dogs in the household were spared. However, for some reason, Lin Bai managed to escape. Later, Lin Bai was saved by a herb-gathering woman from the countryside. This herb-gathering woman is particularly extraordinary. Back then, the Empress Dowager, who was still a consort, left the palace with her twins after quarreling with the emperor. Unexpectedly, the twins were stolen. And they were also saved by a herb-gathering woman. So, Your Majesty and Lin Bai share the same foster mother, the man said with understanding. Then by age, he should address physician Bai as elder brother. However, Brother Liu added, it's more than that. I've heard that Lin Bai was a prodigy from a young age, unparalleled in medical skills. When His Majesty was a child and in poor health, it was Lin Bai who prepared the medicine that cured him. At that moment, someone else arrived in the third room and began discussing important court matters. Young Marquis, the northern border war is short on military funds, but just yesterday, the Sun family, the wealthiest in the land, declared that we should fight without worry, and if military funds are lacking, the Sun family will provide them. 2 million taels of silver have already been prepared. Is this true? The young Marquis said. Truer than gold. That person sighed. The Sun family has been extremely prominent in recent years. With such a grand gesture, it seems they want to curry favor with His Majesty. The young Marquis laughed. Curry favor. The eldest daughter of the Sun family, who is now the head of the household, is His Majesty's sister. How can helping one's own brother be considered currying favor? The Sun family. How could she address the ruler of a nation as brother and sister? Thus, the young Marquis explained the relationship between them. The man clicked his tongue in admiration and said, speaking of which, I've also heard some rumors from the martial world. The young Marquis couldn't help but grow curious. Oh, Brother Chen, do tell. Brother Chen said, rumor has it that every time the martial alliance leader enters the capital, he goes to the imperial palace to steal treasures, but no one dares to arrest him each time. I heard His Majesty fears his formidable martial arts skills. Haha, the young Marquis burst out laughing. His Majesty indeed doesn't dare to arrest him, because His Majesty adores this martial alliance leader to death. It's not that he doesn't dare to arrest him, it's that he's indulging him, spoiling him. Understand? Brother Chen was shocked. His Majesty actually has such tastes. No wonder, since His Majesty ascended the throne a few years ago, aside from the Empress. There are no consorts in the 6 palaces. Bah, what nonsense are you spouting? Do you even care about keeping your head? The young Marquis couldn't help but grow tense. He continued, back then, when the Grand Emperor decided to travel the world with the Empress Dowager, some at court thought they could take advantage of the young emperor's inexperience and began to stir up trouble. What's more, when His Majesty was on his way to the Guardian Temple to pray for blessings, they sent numerous martial arts experts from the Jianghu. However, before those martial arts experts could even make a move, they were all taken down. From then on, no one dared to entertain any wicked ideas again. Brother Chen said, I have also heard about this matter. It is said that the Grand Emperor has been secretly cultivating a force in the martial world, one that can rival thousands of troops. The young Marquis laughed and said, indeed, it can rival thousands of troops, because it was personally executed by the top 3 masters on the current world's ranking list. What? Those 3, aren't they like dragons, seen only by their heads but never their tails? The world only knows their names in the martial world. One is called Lin Wu, one is called Lin Lu, and another is called Lin Qi. The young Marquis said, "Then you certainly don't know that His Majesty and the eldest princess also have another name, Lin Sai and Lin Shan." Bang! A slap on the table was heard. And Brother Chen suddenly understood. So they share the same mother. Brother Liu from Room A also exclaimed in shock. "What was mentioned in Room C reminds me. Her Majesty the Queen also has another name, Lin Sha." A companion couldn't help but laugh. "As you said, the Grand Preceptor publicly admitted that he also has another name, Lin Yi. The current Chief Grand Secretary once told his disciples that he also had a name, Lin Ju." By the way, Bing Jian mentioned that the head of the Sun family and His Majesty are siblings. What a coincidence. She also has another name, Lin Er. Could it be that they share the same mother? At this moment, the pieces fell into place. People from both Jia and Bing suddenly ran out. Curious, I also ran out to see. The two groups of gossipers stared at each other, seemingly astonished that while they were eating different melons, they had accidentally pieced the whole story together. At that moment, the young Marquis recognized me and quickly knelt down. Cheminette pays respects to the elder madam. Seeing the young Marquis himself performing such a grand gesture, the others couldn't help but kneel down as well. The man beside Cheminette whispered quietly, "Who is this elderly lady?" Cheminette lowered his head and replied, "She is the one who, at the Emperor's ascension to the throne, publicly declared that she would share the same honor and status as the Empress Dowager. Even the Empress Dowager herself once said, 'As mothers of the Emperor, we shall share the same honor and glory.' However, the old lady is indifferent to fame and fortune and extremely low-key. No matter who among the powerful in the capital, it is difficult to get an audience with her." Cheminette, who was serving in the court at the time, had once met the old lady. However, while wiping the cold sweat from their brows, the few of them stubbornly knelt down. I knew they were afraid I would blame them for casually discussing matters concerning the Emperor, and they were extremely terrified. So I said, "What you said is harmless. No need to be so frightened. Continue eating and drinking." Only then did they breathe a sigh of relief. "Thank you, madam." I nodded and then left with my disciple, Yang Xing. In fact, everything was just as they had said. The eldest, Lin Yi, is the son of the imperial preceptor, inheriting the nation's fortune. The second child, Lin Nai, comes from the Sun family, whose wealth rivals that of the nation, and has excellent financial fortune. The third and fourth children are from the royal family, now Her Royal Highness the Princess and the Emperor. The fifth, sixth, and seventh children are triplets, born into a martial arts family. The eighth child, Lin Bai, comes from a family of doctors for generations. Old Ninth, the bookworm, was originally the son of the top scholar in the imperial examinations and is now the chief grand secretary of the inner cabinet. Old 10th, Lin Shi, the daughter of the Valley Master of Medicine Valley, and the current empress. At that time, I raised her until she was over a year old, and her biological parents came looking for her. Later, Old 3rd and Old 4th couldn't bear to see me struggle so hard, and because the wrongful case of Lin Bai's family needed to be redressed, I was invited by the then Emperor and Empress, now the retired Emperor and Empress Dowager, to move the entire family to the capital. Lin Shi and I have kept in touch through letters ever since she grew up. At the age of 16, Lin Shi, who already possessed breathtaking beauty, came to the capital to visit me. She and the Emperor fell in love at first sight. Although they were adoptive siblings, they had only spent half a year together in their childhood. As long as they treat each other sincerely, I'm happy for them. What a relief. The children I picked up through bullet comments have all changed their originally tragic fates. Warm-hearted and kind, outstanding and exceptional, pillars of society.